Last weekend, I was lucky enough to get exclusive access to a demo for the game Untamed. I'm sure you saw the video already, but if you didn't, I did leave a link in the description below. This weekend, I want to introduce you guys to Milo, the lead developer of Untamed. This is how our conversation went. I hope you enjoy. Milo, tell us about your game.
Untamed is a planned creature multiplayer survival game. I've been working on it for roughly the past 2 years, like learning how to do 3D modeling and texturing, but all of the development for the actual demo that we have so far has been about 3 months. Right now, the mechanics for it are pretty limited, but we have plans for like a whole bunch of game mechanics that we want to put in.
What kind of mechanics do you plan on putting into the game?
Right now we have like basic combat and very rudimentary survival with health, stamina, food, and hunger depletion. But the kind of things that we want to add in are like territories that people can claim, grouping systems, more creatures, because right now all we have is one creature to play as, more customization settings for like the little player HUD and also the mini map, so that things are like easier to use and you can like move them around the screen to where you want them. And then we also have some long-term goals of having like boss fights where big enemies spawn on the map and maybe have like a little highlight around them so that people can go and check that out. We also want to add in AI that can fight with players and also smaller AI that people can hunt. We have an idea for like mazes that have, for lack of a better word, treasure in them that are guarded by AI enemies. And the goal would be to explore through these mazes, find what you can, and then survive long enough to bring it back out of the maze so you can keep it. And I'm really excited about that one too. We've got a couple more ideas for mechanics like nesting and boosted combat zones. Also KOS penalties, which still need a little bit of tweaking, and actual coded in body down rules, because a lot of Discord servers that have dinosaur survival games will have body down rules, but it's all followed by like the honor system. And I'd really like to try and figure out a way to actually code that into the game so that the server owners can like set up how specifically they want the body down rules to work. And then when people are playing and fighting with each other, the rules just are coded in. So if so many bodies fall, then like an area won't have combat in it anymore. Or if you eat from a body, it has a little radius around it where you are protected from any attacks unless someone threatens you to contest for the body or something like that. We also have ideas for some jumping puzzles, unlockable skins, and also actions influencing the actual stats of the creatures. And that's kind of what we have roughly so far. We have much more like detailed thoughts on how we want things to work, and also we're still brainstorming more things and getting tons of suggestions from the community already about like stuff that they want to add in, and it's pretty cool. We've got a lot of things planned.
Now, you mentioned nesting. Are you going to have different stats for the creatures if they're nested in?
I have been thinking about that. We aren't quite sure yet if stats will be affected by being nested in or not, and I'm kind of leaning towards possibly, because it would give a good like incentive for people to be nested in and push the more social aspect of the game, which is ideally what you want to do in a game that relies on survival and working together. But yeah, we haven't quite looked into that yet, but it's definitely on the table for consideration.
I absolutely love the Lazard, and in the comments on my video, people said that they'd been watching you actually make the character. How did you come up with the design and characteristics of the untamed creatures?
So for the Lazard, I love that you call it Lazard. It's always interesting to hear how people say creature names when all they've seen is the typed out word. So the Lazard was originally a very simple model that I made when I was like a baby 3D artist. And it didn't have ears, it didn't have eyes, it didn't have teeth, it didn't have a tongue. It was very, very simple because I didn't know how to model any of those things. And that's kind of what I was using as like a placeholder creature for the majority of my learning experiences for Unreal Engine and Blender and just getting into game development. And in like the past 3 months when we were working on the demo, I had already set up a bunch of animations for the Lazard. And so I was like, okay, well, either we can use the Lazard for the demo, and we can use all the animations that are already done for it. When you're setting up animations for a creature, it's like 40 to 60 animations. You'd think that it wouldn't be that many animations, but it adds up so quickly. The main thing was like, okay, we need to save money because the animations are expensive. Making a whole nother creature is expensive. What are we going to do about this? And so I was like, okay, I'm going to revamp the model and just actually put the Lazard in the game, which wasn't the plan from the start, but I'm glad that I did because it kind of carried the original creature from when I was first working on the game to the demo and hopefully to the final game too. Overall, I'm just really passionate about creature design, and I love thinking about like the ways the creatures that we see now on Earth can be like mixed together, or what if this animal was in this environment? How would that affect them? Like what would come of that? I'm really into sci-fi creature designs, monster movies. I love all that stuff. And I've just always been really, really into creature design. And when I started making this game, one of the things that I had thought about was, what am I going to do for this game? Because the majority of creature survival games are either dinosaurs, of course, wonderful topic, or just normal animals that we see every day, which is totally fine. Like they're great. I love those games. But I kind of wanted to do, or of course, dragons, which is also a wonderful topic to go for with this type of game. But what I wanted to do was kind of my own thing and sort of come up with like a sci-fi speculative evolution type of environment and creatures from a world that could be Earth, perhaps, but also might not be. But yeah, that was kind of the main driving force for the creature designs.
Now, are your different creatures going to have special abilities or anything to that effect?
Yes, we do plan for the creatures to have their own unique abilities. We still need to like actually sit down and work those out and play test them to make sure they work properly. But we do plan for certain creatures to have specific abilities, like some animals to have more armor than others, or some to have a dense coat of fur that keeps them warm in the snowy weather so that they don't take any adverse effects, or being able to be very fast, or being able to jump much higher than other creatures. And I know when I'm saying that, those are just like very basic level types of differences, and not the same as like having a special attack of some sort. And things like special attacks are something that I do also want to explore and play around with the creatures, but that's also something that's like much further down the line after we get all of the base game mechanics worked out.
Is there player progression in Untamed, or are there different skill levels?
Right now, there isn't any sort of progression besides growing, which for the demo is sped up very quickly, but the stats do change as you grow. So when you start out as a little baby, you do very little damage. I think you can run at the same speed as adults right now, which will probably be changed, but you also have very little health. But it's probably just mainly going to be the growth system, and then if you find certain items in the game or artifacts or talismans from boss battles, we do have plans for those to give like a temporary boost to stats. So, for example, if you go into one of the mazes and you find, let's say, a little artifact, and you bring it back to your territory and you set it up in the middle of your territory on like a little special spot for it. For the next, for example, half an hour, you have a boost to your attack power. At the very start of that half an hour, the boost is at the max it's going to be. And then slowly over that half an hour, the boost will become less and less until the little artifact wears out. And then it doesn't work anymore. It despawns or breaks, disintegrates, whatever you want to call it. And then if you want to have another boost, you'll have to go out and find another little artifact to display in your territory. That's kind of the main plan right now that we have for stat progression, because we also don't want it to get too overpowered to where people are just like constantly getting better and better and better until like younger players can't actually like get into the game because other people are just crazy overpowered. Oh, that was the other thing I wanted to mention. We have an idea for what players do affecting their stats. So, for example, if you run around the map constantly, and if you're constantly sprinting, like regenerating your stamina and then sprinting everywhere again, then the max stamina pool that you have will slowly increase because you're just sprinting everywhere. Of course it would. Or if you're fighting a lot and you're getting into a lot of fights, but you're surviving, maybe your health increases a little bit. And of course, there's going to be a cap on this so that things don't get crazy out of hand. But if you keep doing stuff, your character will continue to be just a little bit boosted because it's like exercise, for example. And then if you stop doing those things after a while, they'll just go back to the normal level because you're not doing them anymore. You're not practicing them. That's what we have planned for progression with stats.
Do you plan on involving the gaming community in the ongoing development of Untamed?
Absolutely. Already we've gotten like so many good suggestions in our little suggestions channel on the Discord where people are like, hey, I've got suggestions for the character customization, or hey, I've got suggestions for like the stats with the creatures because right now it feels like they take too much damage, or hey, I've got suggestions for the speed at which they fall down, like when they're jumping, or the animations, or the environments, and just all of that stuff. And all of that is super good constructive stuff that we can take in and be like, all right, this is what we can work with. These are the things we can implement. This is the stuff that we can improve. And then we can go and do that. And I feel like the community's input to the game is going to be the most important thing that we can take into consideration to make this a good game. And I always want to be listening to what people have to say and what their thoughts are on it, because that's how we're going to do it. That's how we're going to make this a better game.
How big of a map are you planning on having for the actual game?
So right now, I think the map that we have is a 4K map for a 4-kilometer map. And I would like to test out a 6-kilometer map next. We could make a gigantic map, but I also don't want to make a map that's too big, because if the map is too big, players are too spread out, they don't run into each other, interactions don't happen, and that's kind of a big part of this game is the online multiplayer aspect. The next map we're going to make, I want to say it's going to be a 6-kilometer map, and we'll see how that feels, especially when we get up to our maximum player count for servers, which the goal is to have 100 players on the server. And we'll just kind of go from there. We'll see how it feels, see how everybody's spread out, see how interactions are going, and how survival is working.
Milo, how many people do you have working on Untamed right now?
Right now we have 10 developers working on the game. We have myself, who is the game director and lead 3D modeler. Then we have Fen and T, who are our writing team. They're going to be working on like the lore and also other community related things. We've got Kyle, who is our main coder for multiplayer stuff and game mechanics. We have Marco, who is our other coder, who does a lot of stuff related to setting up the animations to play at the right time, tons of bug fixing. He's done so much. Like, he's put in a lot of work and a lot of time, just unpaid, these past couple weeks to make sure that the demo is working as it should be. And then we've got Awaldera, who is our other 3D modeler. Crazy skilled person. Like, gorgeous 3D models. I'm so glad to have them on the team because their models are just absolutely stunning. And then we've got Newt, who is our website person. Rook and Fellfellow are our animators. And so far, Fellfellow has done all of the animations for the little idle mix-ins, plus the eating and drinking animations for the Lazard. Fell did an incredible job with those animations. Jory, of course, who is our excellent sound design guy, and he did all of the creature sound effects for the Lazard. Like, all of the calls, all of the little scratch, all of the idle mix-in sound effects, all of the eating sound effects, and he did an incredible job on them.
I heard you had a Kickstarter that was starting today?
Yeah, we just released our Kickstarter. It is up if you want to check it out. We've got all sorts of really cool rewards for backers. We've got a whole bunch of different tiers. Right now, our first goal for the Kickstarter is $25,000. And that's not a lot of money for a game. Of course it isn't. But that is what we need to make all of the really essential core things for the game. So that's what our first goal is. And then after that, if we get more than $25,000, we have lists of all of our other goals for all of the other mechanics, like territories, boss battles, AI, all the fun stuff, basically, that really is going to bring this game to life. And it would be cool to get that funding for all of the other tiers, but even if we don't, we're going to make this game happen. So far, the game has been entirely self-funded, and If it needs to continue to be entirely self-funded, we can make that work. It's just going to take a much longer amount of time to get everything done. All of the developers are paid what they ask to be paid at an hourly rate, and I don't want to underpay people. So I want everybody to be paid what it's worth to work on the game, and if we can't pay them, then development's got to wait. Hopefully with this Kickstarter, we'll be able to get enough funding to pay everybody for all of their time and really get going on all of the mechanics for the game.
I want to thank Milo for sitting down and talking to all of us about his game. If you want to check out his Kickstarter, I did put a link to it down in the description. Also, I put a link to their Discord if you want to join the Discord, just to follow the game. Now, for those of you that actually stuck around and are still watching, I did add in some images of some of the creatures they plan on adding to the game. I hope you enjoy. And until next time, later players.